can be considered the real father of English novel. He was a journalist, so his style was objective, realistic, matter of fact. He started writing novels late in his life. He was 60 years old when he wrote his first novel, that is Robinson Crusoe. In his novels we find objective descriptions of people, objects, places, because he wanted to give us the illusion that what we are reading is the truth, that his stories really happened. Robinson Crusoe is the typical middle-class hero. In fact, he belongs to a middle-class family. His father was a wealthy merchant. But Robinson rebels against his father's will. He doesn't want to work for him. He wants to become a sailor. And in fact, he leaves. His first trip to Morocco is interrupted by some pirates who track them. He is able to escape with an Arab guy, but he sells him to the Portuguese crew. The Arab guy will be free if and only if he converts himself to Christianity. The captain of this Portuguese crew helps Robinson to buy a plantation in Brazil. We will see in the end of the novel that Robinson will become a rich man because of this plantation in Brazil. Now Robinson needs some slaves to work for his plantation, and he travels to Africa to buy some slaves, some African slaves. On the way to Africa, his ship is wrecked and he finds himself on a desert island. Robinson is the only survivor on the desert island after the shipwreck. Fortunately, not far from the shore, he can find the relics of his ship. On the relics, he finds some ink and paper, a Bible, and some tools. Defoe makes a detailed description of what Robinson finds on the relics. These tools are useful for him because he wants to recreate his past lifestyle in England on the desert island. In this sense, Robinson can be considered a real colonizer because he wants to recreate his original lifestyle, culture, on a new territory, in this case on the desert island. Robinson lives for 12 years in total isolation. finally he finds a footprint on the sand, indicating that there must be somebody else on the desert island. And in fact, there's a bunch of cannibals who are trying to capture a man. This man is rescued by Robinson, rescued from the cannibals. This man is a former hostage. He used to be a hostage for these cannibals. Robinson rescues him on a day which is a Friday, and so he names the Man Friday. It must be noted that Friday is not a real man. Not a real name, sorry. Not a real name for someone who is not a real man, in Robinson's opinion. Man Friday is an inferior creature. So once again we find out that Robinson looks at himself as a real colonizer who brings a superior culture on the desert island. After 16 years, Robinson and Man Friday are finally rescued and go back to Europe. Robinson finds out that he is a rich man now, because that plantation he bought in Brazil has made him rich. He makes himself a family, he now has 3 kids, and he earns a huge amount of money, which Defoe says is £600,000. So we are informed of the exact amount of money Robinson earns from the plantation in Brazil. So he is able to go back to the desert island, which is now a Spanish possession, and he is nominated the governor of that island. The symbols, the themes, the motifs in this novel. First of all, before Robinson goes on a trip to Morocco, his father tries to convince him not to leave. His father's speech is very important, because his father tells him about middle-class people and the fact that the middle class is the most perfect, is the state which is closest to happiness. Noble people, rich people, are often slaves to their vices. Poor people have to work really hard to survive. So the best state in the world is the middle state. This is what Daniel Defoe's readers, who all belonged to the middle class, wanted to hear from him, that they were the best class in British society. But the fact that Robinson's father didn't want his son to leave means that he didn't approve of this trip, of these adventures, which encourages us to consider Robinson's adventure his original sin. And in fact, the shipwreck, has been interpreted as a punishment for his original sin, for his betrayal. On the desert island, Robinson suffers from a severe fever.
while he was ill, during his strong fever, he had a vision, a black cloud, and the holy fire of the Holy Spirit telling him that he needed to find his faith in God if he wanted his salvation. From this moment, the Bible, which he had ignored, becomes his best friend. He constantly reads the Bible looking for answers to his questions. The first person Robinson meets on the desert island is himself. What he gets to do is understanding his true nature, is understanding his place in the world, understanding that he was the only one who survived the shipwreck for a reason, because it was a way, it was God's way of making him a better man. He starts understanding that he is part of God's plan, that God has a plan for him, and that he is gonna be saved in the end. The fact that Robinson ends up becoming a rich man because of the plantation in Brazil is a confirmation that God has a plan for him and that he is one of the chosen people. Moll
Flanders is the second novel written by Daniel Defoe. The protagonist, that is a female hero, which is something new in itself, because never had a woman been the main character of a novel, is born in the Newgate prison from a woman who has been sentenced to death, but finally repents and is sent to Virginia, that is a British colony in America, instead. Moll is grown by a group of gypsies when she was very young, when she was approximately 3 years old, but she finally escapes the gypsies and goes to a orphanage. She is finally adopted by a nurse who works in this orphanage. This nurse, this woman, has 2 sons. Moll is seduced by the elder one, but finally marries, and this is her first marriage, marries the younger one, from whom she has 2 kids. But this man dies and she becomes a widow. She pretends she is a rich woman and meets another man who becomes her second husband. This man goes bankrupt and Moll is abandoned. But she soon finds another man, a really decent guy. She marries him, they move to Virginia, and when he introduces to Moll his mother, Moll finds out that the man is her natural brother, because the woman is her mother. So she leaves him and their kids. She goes back to England and gets married for the 4th time. But this man was actually a married man. Then she meets a banker who is another married man. She goes in trouble, she has trouble with money, and so she has to become a thief and a prostitute in order to survive. Daniel Defoe describes the first episode when Moll becomes a thief and a prostitute. Only for a little moment, only for a while, she feels sorry for what she has done, but then she understands that she has to steal and sell her body in order to survive. Finally, she is sentenced to death for becoming a thief, but her life is saved because she repents just like her mother did. She goes to Virginia and finds out that the plantation she had bought with the help of one of her husbands has made her rich. She becomes a rich lady. Nobody knows about her bad reputation in England, but everybody admires her because she's so elegant. She comes from England and she's very rich. She becomes a respectable woman. This proves that Moll Flanders was also one of the chosen people, that God had a plan on her too, just the same as Robinson Crusoe. Both Robinson Crusoe and Moll Flanders are really nicknames, because Daniel Defoe doesn't want to inform the reader about the real name of his characters. This reinforces the idea that the facts told in the novel are true, and so Defoe doesn't want to tell everybody about some people's crimes. This gives a sense of objectivity, of realism.